out again. It exceeded the other. It was 20,711, and that became the highest ever attendance for a regular season game. So after the season last year, Indiana University, Columbus, so that's Indiana University, Columbus, Ohio, Indiana. I know the Indiana University, Purdue, whatever, university. There are so many offshoots of some of these big schools. Anyway, a finance professor did his own post-first season study of the Caitlin Clark effect. And he determined that her presence generated incremental revenue that made her presence worth more than 25% of the entire revenue generated by the WNBA in the season. Her presence alone, attendance, TV, merchandising sales. He also determined that Clark's overall economic impact on the city of Indianapolis was not the $2.4 million that Ball State projected, but it was $36.5 million. And he said, quote, "The numbers are so staggering, they don't even seem real," closed quote. So, look, back to your, that wasn't the sole purpose of, Frank, you writing me, to kind of, it seems like diminish, maybe, borderline mock the Caitlin Clark effect. I mean, it sounds like you're a WNBA fan, both pre-Caitlin Clark and with Caitlin Clark. You've got to know, dude. I mean, you've got to be paying attention to the difference. This league is now actually making money for the first time in the history of the league after 27 years of hemorrhaging year in and year out. But as far as the actual play itself, I know that there were reports of racial, things being said from the crowd. That is completely unacceptable. You get that in a lot of situations in sports. It's awful. We see that in Salt Lake City. We've seen it by the way, in Indiana for Indiana college basketball games. In Bloomington. We've seen it in lots of different places. I mean, who's the receiver that played for us? The Ohio State quarterback who played receiver. And when Washington played Kansas City on Monday Night Football in 2017, said that people were hurling the N-word at him from the crowd towards the bench. Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor? That's it, right? Max, you paying attention?
Yeah, no, I am.
Was it Terrell Pryor who was the receiver for us? That he was it was Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, it was Terrell Pryor. This
Number
is also
11, right?
Yeah, this has also happened. Adam Jones, I think it was when he was playing for the Orioles in Boston. This happened to him as well. So it's been a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful. You don't want to see that. There's no place for that in society, in sporting events. Especially, I mean, by the way, the Terrell Pryor thing, I forget how that played out. I think they were going to investigate it. I forget what actually, what the result of it was. But to me, even Caitlin Clark and even Angel Reese, they both said basketball play. There's just like no way that you'd be watching a men's game, an NBA game, a high school basketball game, and would say anything other than hard foul, but smart foul. You're not, if you're going to foul, you make sure they don't get the and one. And if you saw that play from the beginning, Angel Reese pushes another Indiana Fever player out of the way, and Caitlin Clark's like pointing at the play, like, for the ref to say, how did you miss that? And then when Angel Reese comes down with the ball, Clark goes and makes what I think is a competitive reaction basketball play. And Angel Reese jumps up in a very competitive basketball way. So I guess we could have taken calls on it yesterday, Frank. That would have made it less weak. But that's the way I saw it. I saw basketball, the push-off is it's a basketball play. It's a foul, by Angel Reese that didn't get called. A lot of times we don't see push-offs called. That was a pretty egregious push-off, not to catch the attention of a referee. She grabs the offensive rebound. She's a prolific rebounder. I think we know that already. I think that is right. Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but that is really kind of the overall essence of her game. She is a high-volume, outstanding rebounder. And I guess shot blocker. Is she a good shot blocker too? I think she is.
Yeah,
she's not Caitlin Clark.
Correct.
Like Caitlin Clark is a superstar offensive player. And all around. By the way, she had 20, 10, and 10 in this game, and they won by 30-something points. Max, I don't know if I've asked you this before. Sorry. Do you pay attention to the WNBA?
Occasionally. Ever since Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have joined the league, I've been paying much more attention to it.
Wasn't Indiana not that good last year?
Yeah.
So are they supposed to be much better this year?
They've retooled a little bit, and I think they have a lot higher expectations this year than they have the past 2 seasons.
Okay. I mean, it would certainly be excellent for the league if Indiana was really good. You know, the last year was the first year. I mean, I talked about this during those months where they were playing these games, and I don't think I had ever watched a WNBA game at any point start to finish until Caitlin Clark got into the league, and then I watched several of her games, not all of them, but several of them, and the player, and I remember I came in here, the player that I watched, and I forget, I think she plays for Las Vegas. Did Las Vegas win the title last year? Who won the title?
The New York Liberty won the title last year.
Okay. Was Las Vegas really good because
I believe they played each other in the final.
Asia Wilson, she's the one, she plays for Vegas, right?
Yes.
Watching, the only reason I came across it is because they were playing Indiana. And I'm like, whoever that is, that's the best player in this league. And then I was told by, I think, Denton, she's won the MVP a few times already. She was clearly the best player that I watched. I didn't watch all the teams. I just watched Indiana several times last year. Was she the MVP last year? She was, right?
Asia, I believe, won MVP last year.
Hold on, I'm looking up her thing here. She's a 2-time WNBA champion in 22 and 23. She was the WNBA Finals MVP in 20, and she's a 3-time WNBA MVP 2020, 2022, and last year 2024.
Yep.
Yeah. She's really good. Really good. What else? I mean, I don't have much more to this. Like, this was not anything close to Angel Reese stalking Caitlin Clark around the floor in that LSU Iowa game from a few years ago. You know, that was, to me, that crossed the line, not just the sportsmanship line, but even beyond that. This wasn't that. Angel Reese's reaction was a competitor's reaction to getting fouled hard in a basketball game. Caitlin Clark's reaction to seeing her teammate get pushed off and then not wanting to give up an easy 2 and making sure that it's not an and 1 was a hard foul basketball play, period. And it's, yes, anytime you have that kind of thing between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, given their history of having this rivalry, that's good for the league. Every time they play, I would imagine the numbers are pretty good. But, yeah. And no, the only follow-up to this is, and I have not seen it yet, I'm not going to lie to you, but I did see just before the show started, several of you linking me to RG3 and to Ryan Clark, who I guess are in some spat about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, I guess.
It's grown further than that. From what I've read, I could not give you a full rundown on exactly what has happened. But players are, Ryan Clark mentioned RG3's wife. It's blown up to be even bigger than it is. I think
what I've not listened to anything. What I read before, which many of you sent me links to, is that Ryan Clark, I guess, said something to the effect of, well, RG3 said Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark. And Ryan Clark said, you can't possibly have any perspective on a black woman's thought process because you're married to a white woman. I mean, these two people honestly are insufferable. I mean, we've known that about RG3 forever, but the lack of self-awareness, like every time Ryan Clark goes off on something or RG3 goes off, I have tuned it out in recent years. It's just not interesting. And it's just such like, I don't think like somebody who's self-aware would understand this is not embracing nearly as many people as it is turning off. Maybe I shouldn't go with this performative take. But they don't figure it out. I don't know. I if you want to weigh in on this topic, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. As far as the play goes, Frank, again, like, you know, when you say it was a flagrant one, it was deserved. Yeah, okay, fine. I mean, hard fouls sometimes get called flagrant ones. Whatever. It's fine. Take the flagrant one. And then the response by Angel Reese and the other player for Indiana, Boston is her last name. They got technical fouls, I guess. We see this in basketball now all the time. Whatever. But then you say it might have. You said awfully convenient to just say that it was a typical basketball play. It might have been, but you just said earlier in the email that it wasn't. That there was no place in basketball for that kind of foul. So you're a little bit sort of disconnected here, but I get the overall theme of we didn't spend a lot of time on this yesterday. So if you have thoughts and you want to weigh in on Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and what did you make of it? Again, I can't be more clear. To me, basketball, hard foul after, you know, seeing her teammate get pushed out of the way, Angel Reese grab an offensive rebound. She points to the ref. She hard fouls, not going to give up the and one. And then the reaction from Angel Reese, completely normal, competitive response to being hard fouled. Nothing to see after that other than, and I agree, because it's Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and they've had this few-year rivalry thing going, it gets blown up, and that is good for the WNBA. Anything Caitlin Clark seems to be involved in, you know, scoring 42 or being involved in a confrontation with Angel Reese or probably any other player in the league. Good for the league. 301-230-0980. On the show today, you're going to hear some of my conversation with actually one of my favorite conversations to have this time of year. Now, typically we have this conversation with Merrill Hodge before the draft. We've done it with him, I don't know, 3 or 4 times over the last 6 or 7 years, typically before a draft where Washington may be in the quarterback, you know, discussion. But we had the conversation the other day after the draft, and he just had a lot of really good insight like he typically does. So you'll hear some of that on the show today. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and we are live and we are clear right here if you download the Odyssey app on the team980.com.
Basketball play, refs got it right. Move on.
You got the flagrant. Aaliyah, you got a technical. What kind of happened there?
If you got the tech?
I know.
Wait, what?
I got the tech?
I didn't know that.
Oh, first of all,
No.
Let's not make it anything that it's not. It was just a good play on the basketball. I'm not sure what the refs saw to upgrade it, and that's up to their discretion after watching the initial whatever happened during the play and then whatever happened after. We watch a lot of basketball. It's a take foul to put them at the free throw line. I'd rather give up 2 points. I've watched a lot of basketball in my life. That's exactly what it was. I wasn't trying to do anything malicious. That's not the type of player I am. So, yes, wasn't anything like that. And I went for the ball, and that's clear as day in the replay. You watch it. It shouldn't have been upgraded. But, again, that's up to the ref's discretion. But I appreciate AB having my back. I guess I don't even know what she did. I didn't see that.
Oh, girl.
Have fun playing that fine.
Can I get out? Can you?
I got it. Sorry. No worries.
AB is Elijah Boston. her
Aaliyah
teammate?
Boston, yeah.
Aaliyah Boston. Yeah. The first part of that was Angel Reese just saying basketball play, right?
That's that. Yeah, that is exactly what she said.
Yeah. By the way, I've been reading during the break this Ryan Clark and RG3 thing. It's hysterical. I mean, so RG3 said about the foul, after watching Caitlin Clark's flagrant foul on Angel Reese and the aftermath, there's no way Angel Reese can continue the lie that she doesn't dislike Caitlin Clark. Has she said that she doesn't dislike Caitlin Clark? I guess she's said that in the past. I know what hatred looks like. Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark, not some basketball rivalry hate either. Hate. So then, by the way, Griffin then later says it was purely a basketball opinion. It was a, quote, sports take, close quote. Actually, at the very end, he says it's not a sports take or a basketball take. He says it's not some basketball rivalry hate either. It's hate. I know what hatred looks like. So then Ryan Clark, I think he does this. It looks like he's doing this on a podcast, his own podcast. What's that podcast called? Pivot, I think.
Pivot, yeah.
Yeah. He says when RG3 jumps onto the hate train or the angry train, it now follows what we saw from Keith Olbermann. I have no idea what Olbermann said. What we saw from Dave Portnoy, I don't know what Portnoy said, as they poured onto Angel Reese to make her the villain and Caitlin Clark heroic or a hero story. He said the one thing we know about RG3 is he's not having conversations at his home about what black women have to endure in this country, about what young black women and athletes like Angel Reese have had to deal with being on the opposite side of Caitlin Clark's rise and ascension into stardom. If you're RG3, when is the last time within your household you've had a conversation about what Angel Reese is dealing with? You haven't been able to do that because in both of your marriages, you've been married to white women. I love how he just slips in both of your marriages. You've been married to white women. And he continues, he says, you haven't had opportunities to have those conversations to educate you on what they're feeling, what black women deal with, and what they're seeing when they think of a young Angel Reese. And the whole time that he's mimicking Angel Reese and bobbing his head up and down and moving his neck while he's doing this whole piece, his wife is in the back, meaning and clapping. When I worked with RG3, he would make all of these sort of corny jokes about milk and how much he loved it and how important it was. And he always points out on social media the color of his wife's white skin, as if the color of her skin is what makes her special, as if the color of her skin is what makes her a good wife. Closed quote. So RG3 then snapped back and said, quote, Ryan Clark personally attacking me and my family personally over a sports opinion is cowardly, spineless, and weak. Griffin, so he apparently went on for like 2 minutes about this. By the way, I'm not typically a defender of RG3, but that is a personal attack that in so many ways is really, a reach. I don't know if it is or not because I don't know anything about RG3's upbringing, but I assume that both of his parents are black. I think he's got a sister and has probably been around black women, may have more of a perspective. And whether he does or doesn't, there's no doubt that that is a personal, low blow attack. Apparently, Ryan Clark went on, and I'm trying to find it because a buddy of mine said that he went on and on about how he covered for him at ESPN when, I don't know. I mean, look, he's not on ESPN anymore. Yeah, I'm kind of with RG3, but at the same time, to make it out to be a sports take when you actually said it's not a sports take. I have no idea if Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark. Nobody in that league should hate Caitlin Clark. She is and has been their meal ticket. They were about, with no Caitlin Clark, they'd be playing for a league that makes no money and loses millions and millions of dollars a year. And, at some point, some of you understand this. You fund a losing entity long enough, eventually you might just say, I'm going to chalk it up to a big loss and just write it off. The league could have eventually done that. No one should hate Caitlin Clark. They can be jealous. We've certainly seen some of that. They don't have to like her, but they should, anybody with any level of intellect has to understand what she has meant to that league and what she has meant to them in terms of what their personal compensation, potential has become because of her. But as far as the, getting back to the play itself, I mean, I don't think it's that hard. Hard foul, not giving up a 3-point play. If it gets called a flagrant after they look at it, that's fine. The reaction from Angel Reese, total competitive reaction from a player that got, fouled hard. Next. Seriously, move on. Other than the two of them and their rivalry and all that stuff is good for the league. I mean, when's the next time they play?
June 7th.
June 7th. Where's the game?
I believe it is in Chicago.
Indiana plays tonight. The Indiana Fever last year outdrew the Indiana Pacers. They had better TV ratings locally than the Pacers did.
Because of the Indiana Fever, the Washington Mystics set an attendance record.
Yeah, I talked about that in the open.
Yeah, it's
they're
crazy.
playing Atlanta tonight in Indiana. I don't know. Is it who's on it on Atlanta? Where did the girl from Connecticut go to?
Paige Beckers. She went to the Dallas Wings.
Paige Beckers.
Yes, she's a Dallas Wing.
Good player too. She's not Caitlin Clark, I don't think, in playing ability, and then also the effect that I think she'll have on the league. If she had come along before Caitlin Clark, I don't think there's something beyond just look. There is the color of her skin, straight, the style of play, the length in which she shoots. I mean, she is like the Steph Curry equivalent to the WNBA. The logo threes is attractive and fun for basketball fans, of all kinds to watch. All right. You guys have some thoughts. We have some callers. Phone lines are open 301-230-0980. Let's start with my guy, James in DC. James, go ahead.
Hey, how you all doing today?
What's up,
James?
My
first time calling in. I enjoy the show.
Thanks, James.
What I wanted to say is that I don't think that Angel hates her as a person. I feel like it's just it's like a professional hatred. I think when she won the title in college, Angel probably thought that she'd be more celebrated. Perhaps she'd be the higher pick. But Caitlin is just a better all-around player. I'm from DC, so I really enjoy seeing all-around players and all the attention, I guess, that Caitlin gets for being such a good player is hard sometimes for peers to take. Even though, like as you said, it's benefiting the league, all the players are going to make more money until they are able to accept that this is just what we're going to get. And it's unfortunate because it shouldn't be a racial thing amongst her fans. Every time something happens, it's like it turns into, one or the other. The fans are racist. The referees are racist, and that shouldn't be the way. We watch Magic, we watch Bird come into the league, and we as fans need to grow up. And maybe once we do that, the players may follow. But for now, the rivalry is going to be profitable. They're going to make money, and hopefully the league can continue.
Yeah, no, that's I appreciate that, James. Some common sense to the conversation. Look, I mean, I have always felt, and I think it's one of the reasons we all love sports. I mean, there is the drama, the unpredictability. It is the ultimate reality show. Sports are, because you don't know the outcome. And sports for a long, long time now has been like the ultimate or the purest form of meritocracy. It's about winning, and whether you're black, white, or purple, if you can help me win, you're going to play. And that's the other part of it, is there's this, community that kind of comes together in sports, whether, it's weekends, playing pickup basketball or being at your kids' games, or, I mean, I there's so much to sports. It's so much fun. Like I prefer not to have the other be a part of it. And I think in sports, more often than not, and more often than in any other part of life, it isn't. But anyway, Ian wants to weigh in. Ian, go ahead.
This caller was spot on. I think Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark have become a proxy race war where everything about Caitlin Clark, because she's white, because she went to Iowa and not UConn or somewhere else, because she's straight, it's become, she's this symbol for something else. And there was a lot of backlash this summer when she said, hey, I acknowledge that this league was built on the backs of a lot of African-American players, and that made a large portion of her fan base upset. Angel Reese, on the other side, represents a different point of view. And it's very odd because, like we've seen, there's other white players in the NBA that are not lesbian, and they don't endure what Caitlin Clark does. And obviously, there's a ton of African-American women that are in the WNBA that don't endure the vitriol that Angel Reese does. I think with Angel Reese, if I was advising her, I would say some of this you're bringing a little bit on yourself. When you taunted her 3 years ago in the Final Four, you kind of created this kind of rivalry, if you will. And in some ways, I don't know if she hates her or not, but it's very clear that Caitlin Clark is in her head, if you will. Angel Reese is a fantastic and phenomenal player in her own right, and I would really encourage her to just kind of stay within that circle, because what's happened now with the WNBA is there's, like you said, she's the Tiger Woods, if not greater, for this league.
In
She
terms of
brings in
needle
more
movers,
eyeballs.
that's really the
She's the
last
greatest.
one that we've seen move the needle from one number to another that much in terms of percentage of growth.
Absolutely. And so I understand the jealousy. I understand the dynamics, but what's happening now is every move of those two players is magnified. And it's really unfortunate because I think Caitlin Clark has handled herself with such dignity and class and kind of just wants to play basketball. You've heard her say that multiple times. Like, I'm not here to represent a movement or a race or a different group of people. I just want to play. Yeah. And it's going to be really tough because I think rivalries sell, hatred sells. And I think this game, I'm sure, will be
rivalries are great for
game.
Sports. Then they're sports of all kind. We shouldn't make it out to be any more, because it's women's sports. There are rivalries in every gender and every level of sports, and it typically is good for the games and good for those that watch it. It makes it more interesting.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see how this kind of parlays in the long run, because I think there's a lot of amplification of both of them. And I think, again, they're both phenomenal players. They just want to play. But I think Angel Reese is bringing some of this on herself. And I understand.
I don't think she did that the other day, though.
No, she didn't. She didn't. But you saw her reaction where she's like, what the F is wrong with you? You're effing crazy. You saw her say that. Like, that shows a different level of reaction than, hey, that was just a hard take foul,
Right.
you know?
Okay. Let me move on. We got our fill of iron, but it was good stuff. I appreciate that. Let's go to our guy Bones. Bones, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Kevin? Look, for me, I like the rivalry. It's a good rivalry for the WNBA because the NBA always had a rivalry, right? But far as all the other stuff, man, that Ryan Clark and RG3 going through, you know what I mean? And people bringing race into it, man, that's ugly, man, and I ain't feeling that part of it, you know what I mean? Just let them play, let them have their little spat, you know what I'm saying? And let's enjoy the competition, man, and leave all that other stuff up out of it, man. Come on, outside people creating more chaos than them two, you know what I mean? Okay, it's cool. And the reason you gave her the face when you won the championship, now Caitlin Clark come back. That's how it goes, That's rivalry right there. Thanks for taking my call,
Thanks,
y'all.
Bones.
Peace.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Let's go to Lap. Lap, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Kevin? I like the rivalry, like Bones. Shout out to Bones. That's my guy right there, Hall of Fame caller. But, we can't deny that it is going to always be race, especially if it's going to be a white and a black person, just with anything. It's always going to be that way. It's just unfortunate. It's sad. It's the way of the world. It was like that with, Magic and Bird, too, as well. But real true fans that like the sport, we want to see the rivalry. We really don't want that. But, it's going to be, so you're going to have more eyes on that. You're going to have more people tuning in just because of that as well. But I like the competition, So it's helping the sport, Kevin. It's growing the sport. It's getting more people. It's just unfortunate it takes so many years because there were so many talented women, Cynthia Cooper and Cheryl. Cheryl Miller. Like, it's just unfortunate they didn't get that spotlight and shine. So I'm just hoping that these girls now really embrace it, and take it for what it's worth. And,
Lap, I have a question. I have a
question
question for you because you follow the league. We're both very familiar with what Magic Johnson and Larry Bird did for the NBA when they came into the league together. I don't view this as a repeat or a comparable. From two standpoints, and the second part of this is I'm projecting here because I don't really know. But first of all, Caitlin Clark's effect on the WNBA is singular. She is the primary, if not the 100% reason for the massive increase in the interest in the league. Whereas when Magic and Bird came in together, it was the two of them. You really couldn't separate who meant more to the league. It was equal. And then secondly, there was also this recognition pretty early on that these are two of the greatest players we've ever seen, even as young players. Caitlin Clark's a great player. I don't know where, if she's going to be the Magic or the Bird and she's going to go down as an all-time great. But right now, there is separation in terms of who the better player is, right? Clark is clearly the better all-around player than Angel Reese. Am I right or wrong on that?
No, you absolutely right.
Okay.
I was saying with the magnitude of the eyes that are on it, the spotlight, the popularity that the sport is growing as a whole. Like, I'm saying it's having that effect.
It's growing,
like
though, because of one person more than any other. Because it wasn't growing before she got there. It was fledgling.
Definitely, I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's growing more with the rivalry from college. You know what I'm saying? That the issue that they had from college. And then now we're seeing it in real time with the WNBA as well. So that's
but what I'm saying is if she never faced Angel Reese in college and there wasn't a rivalry, Caitlin Clark would still be moving the needle at this level.
Yeah,
I just don't think it has as much to do with Angel Reese. I think it's like almost all about Caitlin Clark.
She has a part of it though, and you don't think that the rivalry has some effect on it for the numbers too? I mean, Caitlin is definitely moving the needle. I agree with you there, Kevin.
Look,
but
when she plays Angel Reese, is that game more highly rated than Angel Reese playing against another team, Washington? Yes, I would certainly agree. I would certainly guess that that's true. But if Caitlin Clark, so there's a small incremental bump when they play each other. But is Angel Reese selling out arenas by herself everywhere she goes? I don't know. Maybe she is.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what her numbers is, but I know when she played the Mystics, like it was a lot of people tuning in to go there. I was mad that I didn't even get to go, to see her or Caitlin Clark, because I take my daughter to some games sometime and she really enjoys it. So I definitely would want to try to catch it. But yeah, it's definitely moved the needle, man. I mean, think about it. When they had that rivalry, Kevin, in college, like that was a big story for a long time.
Yeah, but I was hearing and watching Caitlin Clark bomb logo threes long before they matched up against each other in the tournament. Now, I certainly remember that matchup, and at the end of it, the ugliness of the end of it. But Caitlin Clark is a one-person draw. She doesn't need Robin. She's Batman.
Yeah.
She doesn't
need Robin, but
she doesn't need Jimmy Butler.
The spotlight. But it has helped to get the spotlight on the Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just
Thanks,
numbers have been good with that one.
Yep. Appreciate it. Alex in Crofton. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin. One thing no one really talks about is just before Caitlin fouled her, Reese two-hand pushed the girl from the back out of the way.
I've mentioned that several times.
Rebound.
Yeah, there was an obvious push-off before. Yep.
Yeah. She just went in, it wasn't even that bad of a foul.
Right.
And if you see Caitlin when she came in the league, she was getting knocked over left and right. And just got up and played. And, Angel Reese, she's to me, it's obvious she's just so jealous. That comment she made about people are watching me too, and she just can't stand it. She's very insecure, very immature. And Caitlin's like, whatever, I'm just playing. She's just handling a lot better. And it's just obvious jealousy. That's probably, it doesn't really happen in the men's game, but it probably is the women's game. This white girl comes along and gets all the accolades and all the attention, and she just doesn't like it. I don't understand, it's better for her. They can make more money. She's just very immature, and honestly, I can't stand her. I don't think she
I think that's like a different conversation, because I'm not necessarily the biggest Angel Reese fan either, but I don't watch enough of her game. I've watched her enough to say that I do like her game. I love her tenacity, her compete, her rebounding, her defense. There's a part of her game that I actually enjoy watching, but that's separate. Maybe that should have been the gist of the conversation. This hate and where it stems from and the whole thing. To me, the actual moment on Saturday, was it Saturday or Sunday? I'm forgetting now. That was just a normal basketball situation. It was a push-off that didn't get called. See those all the time. It was a hard foul to not let her get an end, and it was a reaction after getting hard fouled that's pretty typical. Beyond that, I'm sure there may be a bit more venom in her response for Caitlin Clark. I would have actually loved to have seen Caitlin Clark stand up to her rather than turn around and walk away, but a lot of people might actually say it was better that she turned around and walked away. But all right. Maybe one last thought when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, quiet day around the sports world and the DMV, but the Bears have agreed to a deal with Joe Thuney to keep him in Chicago past 2025. It is a 2-year extension worth up to $35 million with $33.5 million guaranteed. Following the loss to Carolina, the Capitals have announced defenseman Rasmus Sandin will be playing at the IIHF World Championships this summer, and the Braves come to town to play the Nats tonight. Mitchell Parker expected to be on the bump. Nats on deck with Charlie Slows and Dave Jagler is at 6:15. Also tonight, conference finals get started, both in the NBA and the NHL. The Timberwolves will take on the Oklahoma City Thunder at 8:30, and the Panthers will go up against the Carolina Hurricanes at 8. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
This from Kendall. Kendall writes, Kevin, think about it from an opposite perspective. What if Reese had fouled Clark rather than the other way around? Would it have still been just a basketball play? It would have been for me. Yeah. Now, I mean, I think I'm right about this, but wasn't Caitlin Clark hard fouled the entire season last year? Wasn't every game she was the target in an overly at times aggressive and physical way? And didn't she pretty much handle it with incredible sort of restraint and class may not be the right way to describe it, but restraint and competitiveness and coming back, with basketball rather than anything else? I think that's true. I mean, I can remember sitting here talking about a couple of incidents last year when she was physically and very aggressively targeted. And, a lot of people just wanted to say, hey, welcome to the NBA. Welcome to the WNBA, rookie. This is what happens. You're a star rookie. You're going to have to, earn it here. Fine. So I personally can only speak for myself. Maybe the reaction would have been, over the top. It was egregious. It was more than a hard foul. It was a hate foul, whatever. But that play, we've watched it a million times as basketball fans. It's a hard foul. You're not giving up a three-point play. The reaction was a competitive reaction. Now, maybe some of what she screamed about, going after her there, was, part of the emotion of how she feels about Caitlin Clark. I'm not going to say that wasn't the case. And I don't remember too many times when Caitlin Clark was getting targeted last year that she went after people telling them, they're crazy or whatever Angel Reese was screaming. This is just a reminder, by the way. And I think maybe the dumbest thing that we have seen in sports in a long, long time, and we talked about it for sure, but it's truly one of the dumbest decisions we've ever seen a league or an association make, was not putting Caitlin Clark on that Olympic team. Last year for the season, she had the number 2 sold basketball jersey in all of basketball, or not in the WNBA, in all of basketball. She outsold all but one NBA jersey. To be honest with you, I don't know what that number 1 jersey was. Could it have been Luka? May have been Luka last year because he made it to the finals. And the projections on what her Olympic jersey would have generated in revenue are in literally the hundreds of millions. Although I've read before, and not recently, that it is truly hard to project because every single time someone did a projection about the Caitlin Clark economic effect, they woefully underestimated the numbers. That truly is the dumbest thing we've seen in sports in a long, long time. And it wasn't like she was so far off from being one of the best 15 players. Maybe she wasn't one of the best 15 in that moment, but she was probably one of the best 25 or 30 in that moment. And for a sport that desperately needed exposure and attention, you had the number 1 needle mover in sports, and you kept her off the team. The amount that cost the USOC or women's basketball, they'll never be able to recover. Of course, I guess there are the 2028 Olympics, but there's risk there, right? Because maybe she ascends to being the top player in the sport, but maybe she just ascends to being one of the best 15. But there are 3 or 4 or 5 players that are just flat out bigger stars, and maybe not bigger stars, but better players. And you didn't know that in the moment last year. How the adults weren't able to step in and say, yeah, no, this isn't going to happen this way. Let us show you the difference between her on the team and her off the team. We have been a part of funding this league for 27 years, we are not going to look this gift horse in the mouth. Merrill Hodge he's got so many great perspectives on evaluating players before the draft. We didn't have him on before the draft, but you're going to hear my conversation with him from the other day post-draft. He's excellent. You'll hear it next. Joining me right now is Merrill Hodge. Merrill, of course, in the NFL for many years back in the 80s and 90s as a running back, primarily with the Steelers. Merrill on ESPN's, litany of NFL shows for years. And in recent years, Merrill Hodge has been a bit of a guru when it comes to evaluating draft prospects, quarterbacks in particular. And actually, that's where I want to start with you. I didn't reach out to you before the draft this year because we didn't need a quarterback for the first time in a while. You were super high on Jaden Daniels last year. You loved everything about him heading into the draft. What did you make of his rookie season?
Well, I thought it was extraordinary. The team played well too. You can't take anything away from, all aspects of the team. Teams win championships. There's no quarterback that's ever won one. There's no running backs ever won one. No defense ever won one. Teams win them. And that's the bottom line, period. Now, your quarterback makes a big difference. I'm not minimizing the role. And I think you guys saw when you have a consistent player there and a guy who's somewhat magical in a lot of ways. He can do a lot to help you and elevate your team. And he put that on display. He's just more evidence of the things that translate from college to the NFL, and the things that you have to really focus in on, and they at least have to show signs of it. Some show it greater than others, but if it isn't on display at some point, then that's where a lot of mistakes are made, because you think, well, we'll make him do that, we'll teach him that. Well, you can teach somebody to do anything. That's not the question you should ask. It should be, can it be learned and applied? And Jaden had a lot of study. I've followed him since he was at Arizona State, and his overall development was, I thought, extraordinary. Then he kept getting better and better. I heard somebody say, well, he had his best year. He had his very best year on his last year. I'm like, well, no kidding. That's what you want. I'm like,
yeah.
That makes no sense. I'm like, anyway, but he's obviously the things that he did well, and the skills he developed while he was at LSU really, helped him transition well to the National Football League. I'm happy for Washington, because they've been on the skids for a while, as I know So, and I don't think they're going to go anywhere for a while, But they got to keep building. They got still pieces of the team that they got to build on and get better at. You just can't say we're good enough. There's still a lot of areas they got to get better at.
Something you just said is so true. I mean, this time of year, or certainly heading into the draft, you get the people that will say, he had a good senior year, but you got to go back to that freshman year when he was 18 and the year after. That's a reason for concern. No, it's an evolved player.
Yeah, that's so really. I mean, well, there's a lot of stuff that's somewhat. I mean, to be kind, very questionable, but it happens all the time. I mean, the combine is one of the biggest jokes and embarrassments for a evaluation for a football player. Now, I'm not saying there's not value in there. I'm seeing the best value is really being able to meet them, talk to them, interview them, get to know them more, get a sense of their overall knowledge of the game, their awareness, and that there's a great value there. To know, to decide that a guy is going to be a good football player or a bad football player based on a 40-yard dash is the most moronic thing ever done in the history of our game. And I can't even tell you how many people do it. I mean, she was on display this year. I remember, I don't know who their analyst is, but there was a receiver that was supposed to be fast. He said he liked him, said he was going to be fast, going to run fast, and he ran a 4.55. Now, I'm not even paraphrasing what he says. He goes, he's not a 4.55 guy. Okay, now wait a minute. He just ran a 4.55 on television. We just saw a 4.55. So how can you say he's not a 4.5 guy? Okay, now this is what I'm talking about. What he's doing. He's like, well, he's better on tape. He's faster on that. Okay, but that's the only thing that matters, because that's what he's going to do on Sunday. He's not running in his underwear all by himself with nobody around him. So what you're actually now looking at is something that's irrelevant. So he comes back up. He's like, he won't run a 4.5 again. He's faster than a 4.5. Runs a 4.5 again. And he says he's not a 4.5 guy. Now he's ran it twice. So I'm like, now, how can somebody that's supposed to be an analyst and an expert just deny that we visually saw him run it twice and say he's not that? But now he's not the same player that he saw on tape. I'm like, okay, I'm just giving this example. Here's what teams do. People do it all the time. This happens every year. They go and downgrading.
Yeah.
They go downgrading. Or let's say he ran a 4.3 and you weren't expecting, but they go upgrading. Now he's better. Well, he's not very good on tape, but he's better. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just, it's insane. It's just.
Yeah.
But anyway,
no, the underwear Olympics
with your guys.
Yeah,
This is fascinating.
Yeah, the increase in the obsession over the Indy Combine over the last, I don't know, decade or so is amazing, and it's also incredibly odd to me for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. I'm curious as to what you think about like players that test amazingly well, and then you rely on just looking at the numbers when it comes to production, like a guy like Shamar Stewart is an example, who had all the measurables, everything you wanted athletically at the combine, and even the athleticism popped on tape, but somehow he ended up with a sack and a half last year, a sack and a half the year before, and a sack and a half the year before that. So, how do you kind of, square those things?
The statistics tell you really nothing. Okay. See, there's no description of how does he play the game. That's what's important. From feet, hips to hands, how does he play the game? Like I'll give a guy a great example. Or there wasn't even a debate actually. That was when Khalil Mack and Jadeveon Clowney came out. When you looked at them on tape, from a football skill set, from feet, hips to hands, who could play inside linebacker, outside linebacker, defensive end, you name it, there was one guy. And his skill set, probably the best I've ever seen actually in 25 years of doing this, was Khalil Mack. Like, it wasn't even close. Now, what did Jadeveon Clowney do? Now, feet, hips to hands with Jadeveon Clowney, not very good. His motor, awful. His overall IQ, awful. A third of the time, he's going to do something for your team. Okay, well, a third of the time ain't going to work. Okay, Khalil Mack's going to do something 100% of the time for your team. And I go back to that, those two guys coming out. If the Texans had drafted Khalil Mack, you have J.J. Watt in his prime, you might have had the two most movable, wreckable pieces in maybe football history together. That you could have dominated defensively in schemes and things. But there's another great example. Well, Jadeveon Clowney had some physical measurements that were somewhat freakish. That doesn't tell me you just told me stuff about. You didn't tell me anything about playing football. It's what you didn't tell me, is what I'm getting at.
Sure.
Only tape could tell you, can they play football.
Did you spend as much time this year on the quarterbacks as you did last year?
Yeah, probably more so, because there are just so many of them, and there was really there's really no first round talent. There was, like, if you use the standard of a first round talent, which, listen, if I'm building a team, the last thing I'll ever do is I'm gonna lower the standard and draft, especially that position, draft a quarterback, just because there's not a guy who's the first. Well, this is all we got this year. Well, then don't draft one, unless you're so loaded on your team. That's all you need. Which most teams that need a quarterback, it's not the last thing they need. And there's very few teams that are just like, well, we're just missing a quarterback. Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, and C.J. Stroud. Okay, there's your criteria. Okay, Joe Burrow takes them to a Super Bowl in a couple of years. C.J. Stroud, man, now the Texans are the real deal. Threw for more yards than any rookie in the history of our game. And then Jaden Daniels one step away from the Super Bowl. From what were you guys win 3 games the year before?
Yeah,
4. Whatever it was.
4, yeah.
Okay, it went 4. I mean, and there was a team turnaround, but his play was significant. Okay, you can't deny that. That position, how he played it, was extraordinary. Okay, there's not a quarterback. Actually, there's one guy I actually felt had a true NFL skill set that would be first round talent. His injuries and his age, people were a little scared of that. Was the kid from Louisville,
Tyler Shook.
Yeah, Tyler was that guy. He was one of the last guys. Actually, I had watched him on television when they played Miami, actually.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to watch the Cam kid. I just watched it on television. It was early in the college season. And I'm like, man, you know what? I'm just from an overall sense of how the game is going to be played at the next level. I was like, man, why did that Louisville kid just seem to be a lot better than the Miami kid? Because that's the first time I'd ever seen him. I was like, I would not. He bothered me from a lot of aspects. He doesn't play in structure. His feet are sloppy. He's never in a true position to throw the football, so he's reckless.
Are you talking about Cam Ward now?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Cam Ward. And I'm like, boy, that's just that's a big project there. You know, I'm just watching this, but I'm like, I can't make a full evaluation if I watch on tape, but it was structure-wise, it didn't look good. Okay, it was not. There was not a lot of the type of structure that you're looking for that make it an easy transition to NFL. There's a lot of things that you've got to fix, change, and work on before you got a chance there. Anyway, and the Louisville kid, I was like, gosh dang. I'm like, that guy was, I was like, holy cow. Like, I'm just watching him. The kid in Louisville is better than the kid in Miami. I don't know anything about the kid in Louisville either. I don't know. And the first time I've seen the kid in Miami. And that's from a game TV perspective, which don't ever take that as your evidence, because it can lie to you. I say TV lies and highlights really lie. And so I was like, but just from an overall structure and how they played and rhythm and stuff, I was like, wow, Louisville kid was better. But now I want to watch the tape. He's about 25th on my depth chart, and I come across him. It's my first game. I was like, holy cow! Like, this kid had the best real skills. He looked the best. He threw the ball the best. He played in an environment that's going to. When you think about what's going to happen in the NFL, okay, you don't have the 4 or 5 seconds that these guys have. The Miami Cam Ward has 4 or 5 seconds. You know, he had a great offensive line. That's gone. Those days are over. You have 2.5 at the best. You better get rid of the football. You're going to have to play people in your face, and it's going to be a cloudy, dirty pocket. Can you function in that arena? This kid in Louisville was extraordinary. And his accuracy was not completion accuracy. There's different levels of accuracy. When a guy completes the ball, that's not accurate. You completed it. You really have to break down like every pass. Like, is there a run after the catch? Is the ball where not only the receiver could get it and was that the throw that needed to be made? There's a whole host of things you have to walk through and evaluate. Is he really accurate? Okay, that guy's really accurate. And he's got a big arm that adds to that. And I notice I didn't say that, number one, because it's not the biggest deal. I mean, that's just an added value to your accuracy. He's 6'5", very mobile, plays well, processes things quickly. And this is just a bunch of stuff. And I was like, wow, he was my number one quarterback. That was okay. If I was in a position where I had to do it, I would have taken that kid as no one. So Saints, to me, they lucked out based on what happened to them. You know, obviously, I don't know if they saw all this coming. You know, Derek Carr retiring or having to retire and being in that position. You know, Taysom Hill is coming off a bad knee, and you know, where will he be? I think they got the steal of the draft. They got him in the second round. I know it was early in the second round, but he was clearly warranted a first round from how I viewed him. And if I stack him up against those three I just mentioned, there's a lot of similarities that I could draw that are very similar to those guys that we just talked about.
Yeah, the three on your, you know, recent, the best in terms of what, you know, how you've analyzed them: Joe Burrow, C.J. Stroud, and Jaden Daniels. So the story of the draft over 3 days was Shedeur Sanders. What did you think of him?
Well, this gets misunderstood when I say it. He's a good quarterback. And I mean, he's a good quarterback. There's a lot of things he does well. There wasn't anything extraordinary that you would be like, well, okay, that's going to be scary. You know, that's dangerous. When you peel him apart, though, you know, first of all, if he was really elite, okay, you wouldn't be making excuses for the system that we run and blaming your offensive line. Okay, everything was their offensive line, okay? And then they say, well, he held the ball, because he does hold the ball a long time. If your offensive line is so bad, you won't have time to hold the ball.
Yeah.
So maybe the offensive line wasn't as bad. Notice I watched all his tape. Okay, so their line and the people that they matched up against, his offensive line was not a bad offensive line. They're acting like he had no protection. He had nothing. And that is absolutely 100% incorrect. The bubble screens that they ran, and, you know, they attribute that to the offensive line. I'm like, okay, man, I've watched and played and studied and taught and coached. So I know if your quarterback's really good, man, he actually offsets the issues with your offensive line.
Right.
Okay. you don't have to create excuses for them because your quarterback hides them. When he's a good processor, he's accurate, he gets rid of the football. So going to the, you start peeling it apart. There's a reason he holds the ball. And his processing is not really precise and sharp. Okay, well, in college, if that's a struggle, you're going to times that by 10 coming to the National Football League. And you're going to be limited in what you can do, in how you're going to be able to install things you're going to be able to execute and run. And that's going to be a limitation, and his athleticism, you come from Deion Sanders, you think, oh, he's some dynamic athlete, and he's really not. He's like,
right.
He doesn't have a lot of fast twitch to him. He's slow twitch, but he has mobility, but it's just good. Like here's in the NFL, they'll go, okay, well, our defensive ends can run him down. Our tackles, we're okay if our defensive line. So I'm just saying how they're looking in the NFL. They're not going to go, oh my gosh. I mean, like, you can't sleep all week because, like, who are you going to spine with?
Right.
This is not Lamar Jackson. We're like, God, who we got? Well, we got to play so disciplined. We can't let him out the gate. We have to push him and push him. I mean, this extraordinary discipline. You try to play with that all the time, but now we have to play with the pristine discipline because he'll kill us. There's none of that. You won't go, oh my gosh, he's just really good. He's just good. So I see why he's not drafted in the first round. And quite honestly, that's the best for the kid. Okay, we just talked about three guys, what all they have done over the last 6 years. Okay,
right.
Let's say he went in the first round. What are they going to expect? And he's Deion Sanders' son, so that's going to add another layer of expectation. I don't care where he goes. Here's what's going to be expected. We're going to be in the playoffs. He's going to throw for more yards than C.J. Stroud. He's going to be just like those guys. And he doesn't have the skill set to do that. So then what happens? Oh, he's a bust. I'm here. So he's in a much better scenario to really flourish and play in this league than if he'd went in the first round. And
what round do you think he should have gone in? What round do you think he should have gone in?
Oh, I had him in a second and third round category, but I understand why he fell even further. There is some, you've got to consider what he's bringing to the table, how you're going to manage that, who's coached him his entire life. Okay, how he's going to handle different coaching. I did this with my son. My son was one of the best quarterbacks in the state of Kentucky the year. He and I went played quarterback at BYU. I mean, he was just a phenomenal athlete quarterback. He was a phenomenal quarterback. And I coached him from age 7, I mean, all the way up to when he got to high school. And I was like, okay, this takes time for me to just cut the cord. He needs new coaching, So if I'd have carried him into high school and into college, I think that I would even be like, oh, this might be a little different for Bo,
right.
Going into it, so he's never experienced that. And I know people were very, very concerned about that. That's not a major concern, but you're crazy if you don't talk about it. Then, I was at the combine. I saw a lot of things where he was just very disrespectful to time. Teams have 10 minutes and he's taking calls from his dad, burning 5 minutes of the 10 minutes the team has. And it's just like, if you're going to do that,
yeah,
and you're already going to disrespect people, and you wouldn't sit him down and go, wow, you would not be blown away with his football IQ. You would not be blown away. You'd be like, whoa. So all of those things start to add up. So then you look at, okay, what is he for us? Is he going to be a backer? Well, geez, I mean, we need something. Second, that's what I'm talking about, second or third or fourth round pick. Okay, do I want to pick somebody that's not going to even play?
Yeah, well, that's
second, third, or fourth round.
You nailed it.
I got to get somebody that can help my team. And people forget it. I go back to what I said in the beginning: teams win championships. That's what you better be building on. But you got a luxury item to get a guy like him as a backup. So use it in the later rounds. So now, how Cleveland went about it, that is still just when I was about to give them give them credit for I think they finally straightened out their quarterback woes and making mistakes. Boy, they just they come right back and took the lead. I'm like, what the heck were you doing? You just drafted the kid from Oregon.
Yeah.
Who actually, the kid from Oregon is really good.
Yeah.
If that kid was like 6'2", 6'3". Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
He very well could have been.
He processes quickly, doesn't he?
I'm telling you what, he's everything. Because I've interviewed him at the combine, and he actually, he spun it on me and asked me a question. And he was like, "Well, if I was 6'3", what I'd be?" He goes, "Well, if I was 6'3", I'd go your first rounder."
Yeah.
I go, "That's just a fact." I go, "Listen, 5'10" in our league is a massive handicap. Okay, there's only one guy. I think Drew Brees. Drew Brees is 6 foot though. I mean, Russell Wilson's 5'10", so Russell Wilson's won a Super Bowl. I go, maybe what was he didn't win one either. Frank Tarkenton did not win.
He didn't win it. Yeah.
I know of no other quarterback. I don't know the entire history. Anybody that's 5'10" that's won a Super Bowl. I mean, below 6 foot, other than Russell Wilson. And he had the best running game in football and the best defense in football. Okay, and he was a great compliment. And as long as he was in that role, I mean, the Steelers saw that. Everybody saw that. That's why Seattle moved on from him. He's a great compliment as long as you have those things in place. He's not going to carry you. He's not going to have set deficiencies if you don't. These other 3 guys I talked about, Burrow, C.J. Stroud, James Jones, they can offset some deficiencies. Okay, like a guy like Deshaun Sanders cannot offset deficiencies.
Yeah.
So he's where actually would ideally will be, I think, sets him up the very best to have a really good NFL career if he gets a chance to play, and he gets a chance, in a role, and they can build a team around him and they have time. But he's not special. There's nothing that you would say, wow, this is really elite. He just didn't have any of that. So I completely understand that. Why the reason he started to fall like he did, because then those other things started to play a role in teams.
Yeah, of course. It's is the juice worth the squeeze if you're going to end up with a backup quarterback and everything that comes with it. That's why some of the perceived headaches that were super talented got picked, because they knew they were going to play. Look at what we're reading in the last 2 days about Caleb Williams and his father and what they were trying to do. But where did he go? He went number 1 overall because of the talent. I'm curious, did you have any opinion about Washington's draft?
No. I'm telling you, I don't even know who they drafted. I mean, as soon as you said that, I'm like, I didn't know who you guys drafted in the first round.
We drafted, Washington drafted a tackle, Josh Connerly from Oregon, in the first round.
Yeah. I was so tunnel vision on quarterbacks this year and running backs that it's probably the first time in 25 years that I've only done that.
Okay, let's talk about running backs. Was Genty worth the number 6 pick in the draft?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. He has extraordinary. Now listen, I know a little more about him maybe than most. Dirk Cutter, who was
right.
If you remember, he was head coach of Tampa Bay.
Sure.
Before Bruce Arians came in, he was office coordinator in Atlanta for decades. Forever, and is one of the greatest minds I have ever met in football. And I played with some of the greatest: Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher. I've worked with Bill Parcells, Bill Polians. Tony Dungy's, Marty Shire. He was my high school coach. Dirk Cutter was my high school coach. I've known Dirk Cutter since I was in high school. And Dirk Cutter is the office coordinator up at Boise State, for the last couple of years. So I just had a chance to talk to him, to get some true insights about him as a kid. And he's supposedly just as pure a human being as you could possibly get. Like, you're not going to go to bed at night worried about him. Now, I know I'm not talking about his football skills yet, but that is important when you're going to invest in a runner at that point. Now look at his skill set, and that makes him extraordinary. He has an extraordinary power and balance and agility to him that is truly unique. I mean, in his style and the way he runs, and he's not a big target either. And to try to tackle him, I can tell you, I've seen every scenario. He does such a good job of using the things they issue for protection, and that is shoulder pads. So they give you those because they want you to use them. You know, those are your weapons. It's not your helmet. And he does such a good job of making it tough on you to fight to his legs, because you got to fight through his shoulders. And he has such great balance, and then when you hit him, he is able to rebalance himself and move laterally and vertically, whatever is required after the hit. And he has home run speed. Like, you blink, I mean, you know, he gets the edge, he's done. And that's just a rare combination. So I'll give you this. Everybody's like, well, the Penn State game really showed who he was. You're right, he did. That's exactly his best game. His best
I
game.
agree.
Guess what? That is exactly what you wanted to see.
Toughest 104 yards of the season.
That is exactly what he's going to see on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, they devoted everything to stop that kid. Okay, he got 104 yards. Okay, I'm telling you this: if you devote that type to some other type of runners, you might get 50. Okay, but how he ran. Okay, so I already talked about quarterbacks and just those two things that are so important. You build from there. If they don't have those two things, processing and accuracy, and there's different degrees there, then we got a problem. If you're lacking one of them, we got a problem. And the chances are significantly high you will not succeed in this league. In this league, from a runner perspective, I don't think a lot of people know this, that the college field is different than the NFL field.
Hashes.
The hash marks are different in the NFL. So, and the reason for that, the hash marks in college are wider. In the NFL, they're narrow. That means you have to play in the middle. So the most important aspect for a runner is that I played that position, I learned it well, I understand it well, I know it intimately, is your ability to start, stop, and redirect and run with power and get yards when there's a crack is how you have to learn how to run in the NFL. If they have provided me a crack, you know, or a yard, I got to get that 2 yards. I got to get that 3 yards. I got to add a yard or two to whatever they've got me, and I've got to learn to run like that, because that is the dirt you're going to face. That's the trash you're going to. That's the variety of way you're going to run in our league. Versus college, where you can run to the perimeter. You know, my guy runs a 4.4, you run a 4.6, I outrun you. You know, that's why they play on the perimeter so much in college, because you can, because those hash marks make a difference for that, you know, and it makes a difference in the running game too. And most of the guys, my guys are better than your guys. That's college football, a big portion. In the NFL, my guy is as good as your guy. Hash marks are in the middle, we play in the middle. And who can play in the middle? And this kid can play in the middle.
He loves Ashton Genty. Washington gets Ashton Genty in week 3 of the NFL season, with a little rest coming off a week 2 Thursday night game. I enjoyed that with Merrill Hodge. There was a lot more. You can catch the rest of it on my podcast if you want. He's really good talking about football. Frankie Louvu wants something banned in the NFL. I'll tell you what it is when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app. So yesterday, Frankie Louvu, Washington's very good linebacker, was on Good Morning Football, the NFL Network show, and he was asked what he thought of the tush-push rule, which will be debated and more likely than not voted on tomorrow at the league meetings in Minneapolis. It's not going to get voted on today. It will get voted on tomorrow. We'll talk about that here in a moment, but this is what Frankie Louvu said when he was asked about what should be done with the tush push.
You are, in a way, linked to this play because of that moment. You also have a powerful voice. This week, in a matter of a couple of days, the league is going to vote on the tush push, whether to keep it or to ban it. As a guy who has been out there in a playoff game trying to defend it, is it unfair and should the league ban it?
Man, my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think they should ban it. You know what I mean? But I know the argument is going to be about like, hey, well, you guys have to stop it. Don't get us in short yardage and whatnot. But
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like a Chico play, man. You got Jordan Mailata on the right. You got, it's pretty much a scrum in rugby. That's how I kind of look at it. And we got to have a scrum too on the other side. And the scrum is, we have a cadence where we all go at once. It's not like you hard count and this and that where, now you getting us or myself jumping over the pile thinking that they're about to snap the ball. And that's just my own personal opinion, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Really interesting answer from him. It's probably not the answer that Dan Quinn wanted to hear, because Dan Quinn, remember, was asked about it a few months ago, and he just gave what I thought was the right answer, which is we're just preparing to try to be better at stopping it. You don't want to get into this potential bulletin board material thing where the Eagles, and now their in-division rival are trying to get the play banned. Let the rest of the league fight that. You kind of sit back and just let it play out without saying much. I mean, I don't have a problem really with what Frankie Louvu said. I actually agree with him. I've said this many times in the past. I don't like the play. I don't like the play because I think it is a play that comes with incredibly inherent issues. I mean, the play has not been officiated well at all. There are neutral zone infractions. There are false starts. There are lining up off sides offensively. When we get into this formation and the tush push is coming, the replays of this play, 50% of the time produce clear-cut evidence that there was either a penalty offensively or a penalty defensively that wasn't called, or both on the same play and wasn't called. Secondly, I do agree that it looks like a non-football play. It looks very rugby scrum-like, looks very Old Glory-like. You can catch Old Glory. Really good team here locally. I just I don't like the play. I also, if I were a Philly fan, on one level, I'd be really interested to know how many yards we're actually giving up by running the play. I've talked about this, recently, but 3rd and short, 4th and short, especially in the middle of the field, not necessarily in goal to go. I mean, that's when you typically see the biggest explosive runs. Everybody within, a couple of yards of the line of scrimmage. And Saquon Barkley with that offensive line, with, by the way, also the quarterback is a run threat. I bet you that the Eagles are giving up a lot of yardage by running the tush push. Now, the flip side to that argument would be, yeah, but we maintain possession of the football, and it's more than worth it to give up some of the big play potential for the one time that you're going to get stopped on a handoff to Saquon Barkley and end up having to punt because the tush push has such a high success rate. It's actually, a success rate like in the 80 percentile range over the last few years. I don't like the play. I've wanted it to be banned. So, look, we had Mark Maskey on the show yesterday. Maskey really covers this stuff well for the Post. He's in Minneapolis for the league meetings. He just wrote a little while ago, and a lot of what he wrote was some of the stuff he said to us. Like the three big topics over the next 2 days at league meetings are this: can NFL players participate in the Olympics in the flag football competition in 2028? I'll be honest with you, I don't have much interest in that topic one way or the other. That's down the road. And if they end up being able to participate, great. It's, are they potentially going to get injured? Okay, the league will decide on the merits of that. They're not going to miss any football by participating in the Olympics. The Olympics in 4 years in LA are in, late July, like the last 2 weeks of July. So maybe they missed the first 2 days of camp. I don't really care about that issue. The two issues that are going to be discussed and potentially voted on tomorrow are tush-push and playoff format seeding. The playoff format seeding question proposed by the Lions is seeding based on record. I'm in favor of that. Maskey pretty much told us yesterday he does not think that will pass. He does not think it's got 24 votes, but he does think that that's something that may get passed when they go to an 18-game schedule. I think it makes sense for so many reasons. Number one is it's just fair. Number two is it doesn't ruin the division integrity or the division emphasis, because to win a division still means an automatic spot in the postseason. And then three, you're going to increase the number of games at the end of the season that have meaning, because you're playing for seeding in addition to playing for the playoff games. What does that mean? That typically means even more revenue for the league down the road. I like that idea. I was somebody put this out, not that we couldn't have done this on our own, but if you just take the last 4 years of playoffs, in 2021, the seeding would not have been impacted at all. It laid out with the top four records were all four division winners. In 2022, there would have been one change. Remember that Chargers-Jags game in Jacksonville, where Jacksonville came back from like a 27-0 deficit and won that playoff game? They would have actually been on the road against the Chargers. And in that same year, Dallas, who went to Tampa and beat the Buccaneers, would have been hosting as a 4 seed against the Giants, who would have been a 5 seed. So it would have been different matchups altogether in the NFC. In 2023, each conference had one difference. It would have been in the AFC, the Browns hosting the Dolphins instead of playing on the road against the Texans. The Texans ended up hosting the Browns and winning a first-round playoff game. The Texans instead would have been playing at Kansas City. Big difference because they were a game worse than the Browns. In the NFC that year, if you remember, the Eagles were tanking at the end of the year. They went on the road and got blown out against the Bucs. Well, they would have actually hosted a game against the Rams instead. And then last year, we know there would have been many different changes in the NFC. In the AFC, the Chargers and Texans would have flip-flopped on where that game was played. The Chargers ended up losing to the Texans in Houston. If it were seeded based on record, they would have hosted the game against Houston. And in the NFC, man, the whole playoffs would have been, first round would have been different. The Lions still would have been the 1 seed, but the Eagles would have been the 2, Vikings 3, Washington 4, Green Bay 5, Bucs 6, Rams 7. So Washington would have hosted a first-round game against Green Bay instead of playing on the road against Tampa. The Vikings would have hosted a game against the Bucs instead of traveling to face the Rams. They ended up playing that game in Arizona because of the wildfires. And the Eagles would have, instead of hosting the Packers, would have hosted the Rams in the first round. They ended up hosting the Rams in the second round of the postseason. I just think that there's so much that makes sense about that, and I don't think you ruin the emphasis on the division. Remember this about the NFL schedule. Right now, only 6 of the 17 games are division games. Now, they're important games, but the other 11 are even more important because you could go 6-0 in the division. If you go 2-9 in the non-division games, you're not going to the postseason. Now, we understand that typically a 6-0 division record means you've got a really good chance to make the playoffs as a division winner. But when we go to an 18-game schedule, it will literally be a third of the games. It'll be 6 division games, 12 non-division games, unless that extra game ends up being maybe a third division matchup. Imagine that, by the way, just for a moment. Bear with me. What if when they went to 18 games, instead of just adding another non-division game and making it non-division games, 6 division games, what if instead you played 9 division games? You played each of your 3 division opponents 3 times during the season. And then the other half of the schedule would be against, a division in your conference. That would be another 4 games. A division in the other conference, that would be 8. And then you get a 9th game, against an NFC opponent in a division where they finished in the same spot that you did. Can you imagine? I think I've pitched this once before, several years ago. What if you played 3 times each year against the Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants? You had 9 division games, and you just rotated in terms of, one year you're going to play the Cowboys twice at home, once on the road. The next year you're going to play them once at home, twice on the road, etc. That would put a lot more emphasis on division play. The rivalries would be even more often, battled out on the field. Anybody with me on that? I think that would be really actually. Would it be excessive? Because when you get to 18 games, the division games, if you only play your division opponents twice, it's going to make up a third of your schedule. That's it. A third. The other 2/3 are going to be non-division games. If you went to facing your division opponents 3 times a year instead of twice a year, now it's half your schedule. You like that idea, Max?
Yeah, real hate would be in full effect. It would be awesome. Because Commanders and Eagles fans have talked plenty this offseason. It would be nice to see them third, maybe even if you get to the playoffs, a 4th time. Because how many times have you seen teams play each other 4 times? Not 3.
Other than the NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball, no other sport has. Those sports you're playing division rivals. I think up until recently in Major League Baseball, weren't you playing 19 games against your division opponents? And then I think they reduced that number recently.
It's something like that.
The problem with the NBA and even the NHL to a certain degree is that fans don't even know what the divisions are. In the NBA in particular, nobody can name right now the divisions and the teams in them. It's basically always a conference deal. And the NBA never was a big deal division-wise. It just wasn't. I think hockey had more emphasis on the divisions, especially back in the day when they were named,
Yeah,
Patrick
for sure back in the day.
The Adams, the Norris. But I think this was not the intended conversation, but because I want to get back to the tush push here, but I think it would be, we're probably 2 to 3 years away, maybe 2 from the 18-game schedule. Maskey suggested that, the new TV deal would happen in 2030, and they'll probably try to get to that 18-game schedule at least 2 years, maybe 3 in advance. So, adding that extra game, it'll be interesting to see if anybody even proposes what I just proposed. I bet you don't even see the league even consider that. I think it should be considered. I think it definitely should be considered. You'd also, by the way, theoretically, not that all the divisions, are perfect when it comes to geographic proximity to one another. Obviously, in the NFC East, you've got, you got the Cowboys, with Washington, Philadelphia, New York so close. And there are other kind of examples. But for the most part, you probably cut down significantly on travel. You definitely would cut down on travel, because you would be playing Washington, New York, and Philly would be playing, extra games against each other. Same with Buffalo, the Jets, and the Patriots. Same with the Ravens, Steelers, Browns, and Bengals. Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago, Tampa, Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans. I mean, you get out west, the travel's further for the Rams to, or for Arizona to go play Seattle, or for, KC to go to LA. But you'd cut down significantly on travel. I don't know. I have a feeling a lot of people would be like, nah, it's too much. The tradition is twice a year, your place and ours. Let's keep it that way. But the tradition could become, it's twice at our place, once at yours, and then next year it's twice at yours. It might actually, on some levels, I'm thinking it through, diminish the excitement level of the division games if you're playing an extra 3 per year. It's not what I intended to talk about. I do want to get into the tush push and find out what you think. It's going to get voted on tomorrow. I'll explain the Packers' proposal, which changes it from just eliminating the tush push to something much more in depth in terms of how the rule would actually get officiated. I'll explain when we come back.
All right, not much yesterday, but today the Bears have agreed to a deal with Joe Thuney to keep him in Chicago past 2025. It is a 2-year extension with $33.5 million guaranteed, totals $35 million. Following the Capitals' loss to Carolina, they announced defenseman Rasmus Sandin will be playing at the IIHF World Championship. And the Braves, they come to town tonight to play the Nats. Mitchell Parker is expected to be on the bump. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15. Conference finals get underway tonight. In both the NBA and the NHL, the Timberwolves will take on the Oklahoma City Thunder at 8:30, and the Panthers go up against the Carolina Hurricanes at 8. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports, and that's what's trending.
From 5K. The only thing I would say about 3 division games is the fact of who gets 2 home games and who gets 1. Yeah, it would just change every year. So, you have 9 and, in one season, you're playing Dallas twice at home, once on the road. You're playing the Giants twice at home, once on the road. You're playing Philly once on the road, twice on the road, once at home. And then the next year you would have, so that year you're playing 5 at home, 4 on the road. The next year you'd have 4 at home, 5 on the road. They would just rotate, year by year. There's actually a lot of benefit to it. I think the issue is whether or not, it would be perceived as overly excessive and actually like almost putting those division games into the commodity sort of bucket where they're just like any other games because we see them so often. You might just get oversaturated with them, but it'd be a travel reducer. There's a cost, travel reduction, safety associated with that. And it would really emphasize the divisions because when you go to 18, even now, only 6 of the 17 are division games. You go to 18, a true third of your games will be division games. The other 12 won't be. There's this thought of going to some sort of seeding and not guaranteeing a home game for a division winner would somehow make the divisions less relevant. What's made the divisions a little bit less relevant is that there are only 6 games out of the 17. So the other 11, just by the nature of the number, are important, like more important than the 6 head to head. Sure, you get into tiebreaker stuff and you win, you go 4-2, 5-1 in the division. You got a chance more likely than not to do well in the division, but not if you don't do well and extremely well in the other 11 games. I think it would be interesting. I think that, if it's starting in 2027 or 2028, 18 game schedule, and you've got 9 games against the Eagles, Giants, and Cowboys. Maybe we just get sick of those division games where, right now, absence makes the heart grow fonder because there's so many weeks in a row we go without playing a division game. So when we finally get there, it seems even bigger. I don't know. That's not what I wanted to talk about. We can do that another day. I'm going to keep that, though, on my list of things here. That's an idea. 9 division games, 9 other games when you go to 18. I would love to at least see the league consider it just to hear what the response would be and who would be in favor of it and why, and who would be against it and why. So tomorrow, the revised version of the Tush Push is going to be voted on. The Packers' proposal before the recent revision, which I'll get into in a moment, had this support back at the Palm Beach League meetings in March or April of 16 teams, 8 teams short. So instead of, killing it, they actually tabled it. And the Packers came back with a modified proposal on the Tush Push. Remember, it's the Packers that really had an issue with it. Mark Murphy, the president of the team, former Redskin, former champion here, said, back at some point when the season ended, quote, "There's no skill involved, and it is almost an automatic first down on plays of a yard or less. I would like to see the league prohibit pushing or aiding the runner, the quarterback, on this play. There used to be a rule prohibiting this, but it is no longer enforced because I believe it was thought to be too hard for the officials to see. The play is bad for the game, and we should go back to prohibiting the push of the runner. This would bring back the traditional quarterback sneak that worked pretty well for Bart Starr and the Packers in the Ice Bowl." So I agree with that. By the way, I think that Jalen Hurts, because of his lower body strength, would be pretty successful without being aided. Probably not as much as he is being aided. So here is essentially what the Packers are now proposing. It's basically now a rule that will be considered and voted on next week, where you cannot aid the runner in any way on any part of the football field. So, example, you can't push or pull a player who has the football in his hands anywhere on the field. It's a broad ban of pushing or pulling a ball carrier anywhere on the field. How many times in recent years have we seen, the runner gets to the 6 and then all of a sudden he's fighting and he's staying upright, and then here come 4 offensive linemen and a tight end and they push him into the end zone? That would be banned as well. We've seen players get pulled from, the 10-yard line, and a lineman or a receiver will reach out ahead of them and pull them forward. That would be banned as well. Offensive players would not be able to assist the runner except by individually blocking opponents for that runner. This, as Mark Murphy said months ago, this used to be a rule. It was hard to officiate, and then it just stopped being enforced. There used to be a rule, going back to, basically the early 2000s, that you could not push or pull a ball carrier. But the league didn't enforce it, and so it essentially, for all intents and purposes, went away. So the question at 301-230-0980 is, are you in favor of this rule or not? Are you in favor of what will likely get voted on tomorrow? It's not even really a tush push anymore. It's a rule that will prohibit an offensive player from pushing, pulling, lifting, or assisting a runner except by individually blocking opponents for him. By the way, what's the penalty for doing it? 10 yards. They are proposing this rule in the name of player safety and pace of play. And again, it would almost reinstate a previous rule that prohibited players from pushing or pulling to assist a ball carrier. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Are you in favor of the league passing that rule or not? I am definitely in favor of it. I don't like the other pushes and pulls. I don't like to see a runner essentially get to the, 11-yard line and get held up and stopped, and then all of a sudden get pushed from behind 10 yards into the end zone. I don't like that rule. I don't like the way that has sort of evolved. It's like if a runner can just stay upright without, their progress being stopped, but sometimes it's like their progress is almost stopped and then they get a quick push. And they're, resuscitated in the moment as a ball carrier with the help of 3 big offensive linemen, another running back, and a tight end. And then they all end up falling on top of each other in the end zone, and it's like touchdown. I don't like that. I'm in favor of this rule. I would have been in favor of just outlawing the tush push. It would have simply been, you're not allowed to push or pull a ball carrier behind the line of scrimmage. I would have been in favor of that. But I'm in favor of this as well. The other rule that will get voted on tomorrow is the rule changing the playoff seeding format. You would go to 4 division winners qualifying for the postseason, just as they always have, with the next 3 teams in each conference being wild card teams. But once you had your 7 qualifying teams, you would seed them based on record, 1-7. The top seed would still have the only bye right now that exists, the 2 1 seeds, and then you'd have 2 play 7, 2 host 7, 3 host 6, 4 host 5. So you would, avoid the 7-10 division winner hosting the 14-3 5 seed wild card team. I'm in favor of that. So, two big, significant rules changes will be voted on tomorrow at the league meetings in Minneapolis. Where do you stand on both? The rule, we'll call it the tush push rule, but the way it's been revised, it's much more than that. No pushing, pulling, lifting, or assisting a runner anymore, anywhere on the field. And then the other rule being seeding the playoff field based on record. I'm in favor of both of those rule changes. Max, what about you?
It's tough. I always go back and forth on the tush push, but like at the end of the day, especially because my personal biases, let's ban it. Get it out of my league. I want I don't want any competitive advantage for divisional opponents, especially if their O-line is twice as big as everybody else's. I think that's a cheat code. But I also understand the reasons behind the arguments behind keeping it. But my personal biases tell me get it out. Get it out of my league.
Just to be clear from my position, this has nothing to do with this being a Philadelphia play for me. If this were just Buffalo and Seattle was the other team that had been successful doing it, I would still want it out. I don't like the play. I don't think it feels like a football play. I'd much rather see a traditional quarterback sneak, or I'd rather see play action, or I'd rather see my back get the ball. Like I've talked about this a lot recently, but the Eagles, without question, with Saquon Barkley in particular in that offensive line, are leaving a lot of yards, on the table by running that play. Now, that play is a high probability conversion for a first down play. I think it impacts pace of play from this standpoint. The Eagles often run it on 2 consecutive plays. So you get 2 tush pushes. You get a 3rd and 2 and then a 4th and 1. I don't like seeing 2 plays back to back taken up by that particular aesthetic. I don't. And I hate the idea that defenses can't try to time the snap and do whatever they can to stop it for fear of a touchdown might be awarded, like we saw in the NFC Championship game. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Are you yes or no on we'll call it the tush push rule, even though it's been revised to be a push, pull, aiding in any way for any ball carrier at any portion and any time on the field? And then 2, do you want to see future playoff fields be seeded based on record? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right. 2 rules to be voted on tomorrow. The tush push, but the revised rule proposal from the Packers on the tush push is essentially a rule that will prohibit any pulling, assisting, pushing of a ball carrier anywhere on the football field. So it's not just you can't push the quarterback once he takes the snap. You can't push the running back when he is, stood up at the 20-yard line and 2 yards short of the first down, and here comes 3 offensive linemen to push him another 3 or 4 yards. You can't pull a runner. No pushing, pulling, lifting, or assisting a runner anywhere on the field except by blocking opponents for said player. That was a rule on the books for many years. It just was never enforced. A 10-yard penalty would be the yardage on getting flagged on that. And then the second, so yes or no, and we'll just refer to it as tush push, even though it's much more than tush push. Yes or no on that rule proposal. Would you vote yes to ban it or no not to ban it? And then the other is the playoff seeding discussion. The playoff teams would be just as they've always been decided, division winners, 3 wild card teams, but once you had the 7 teams, they would be seeded based on record 1-7. I am in favor of both of those rule changes. 301-230-0980. Let's start with Jonesy. Jonesy, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, long time no talk to you.
Yeah,
man.
Jonesy, what's up, man? Hope you're well.
Yes, indeed, and hope you are too, man. Love listening to your show. Listen, man, yes, I'm in favor of banning the that tush push big time because there's a lot going on with that. And if you look at the all-22, you catch more out of that than a little bit. You see neutral zone infraction from Philly and the whole 9. It's just not caught. Now, I don't understand how it's not caught, but it's not. You see also from time to time in certain other games that the guys actually being picked up and pushed right around when the whistle's being blown. But it's just one of those just slippery move plays, man. So yeah, ban that. And yeah, I'm in favor of also, the rule change on the way the seating thing goes, man. Yep. And I'm not sure if if I add this to it, a second playoff, bye, for the second seed team.
Yeah,
So,
you can't do it with 7. The numbers don't work by giving 2 buys.
Right.
When you get, if they were to expand the playoff field to 8 with an 18-game schedule, I think that's been discussed. I personally like fewer playoff teams. I like the way it is right now. But then if you ever get to 8, then no one's going to get a bye.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I got you. Yep. So I'm in favor of both, though. Nice talking to you, Kevin.
Yeah, you too, Jonesy. Thanks. Dennis in Frederick, ban tush push or the tweaked version of the tush push? And then how would you vote on seeding the playoff field based on record? Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, I officiated football most of my adult life, high school, boys club, men's touch, semi-pro. And in all of those and in college, it's called aiding the runner. And aiding the runner has always been illegal everywhere, except all of a sudden 20 years ago or whatever, I saw it in the pros and I went, wait a minute, that's illegal.
Right.
And they didn't call it. And then I kept looking and they just took the rule out. I think it is a competitive disadvantage on the defense, but banning it the way Green Bay says is the way to go. There's a slight technicality. You can't aid them towards the other team's end zone. You can grab a guy and throw him towards yours, but not theirs. I just
wait. What do you mean? Hold on.
Wrestling.
Explain what you just said.
Sure. You can't grab Jalen Hurts and pull him back towards your own end zone. You have to push him towards the other end zone. That's aiding the runner, and that's what.
Well, yeah, but why would you ever pull him backwards to begin with?
You would not. I'm just being a silly official because that's what the rule says.
Got it.
But it's sumo wrestling. It's not football, and it's just not needed either. Now, as for the seeding, Kevin, I personally, all the sports you've played all your life and mine, winning a division, winning a conference, winning whatever it is you were in, always used to mean something, and you would get rewarded for it. If you do what you're saying, there's no reward for it, and you might as well just have two divisions, AFC and NFC.
No, because the reward is qualifying for the playoffs.
Well, but you could do that with, it doesn't matter. 7 on one side. Oh, I see what you're saying. You can still have a bad record and still qualify.
Exactly. If you're battling, if you're battling at the end of the year in the NFC South and three teams are, 2 or 7-8 and 1 6-9, you're still battling to qualify for the postseason by winning your division. Winning your division still guarantees you a playoff spot.
It does. I personally like the idea of the divisions,
home field
and
is part of it,
and all that. Yes, and it is part of that as well. Whether you deserve it or not, I don't know. I like it the way it is, tell you the truth. But it isn't going to break my heart if they change it. As long as my team gets in the playoffs and continues to win in the playoffs, at that level, that's really what people care about. So that's one of those I don't care. But aiding the runner, absolutely, put that rule back in.
Yeah, it is interesting, right, that it was always a rule, and for whatever reason, they just stopped enforcing it. Thanks, Dennis. Good perspective. Appreciate it. Let's go to Ethan in Annapolis. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, I'll just say this. I mean, there's nothing competitive about when a running back or a quarterback or whoever is being tackled by a defender, and then the 200-300-pound offensive linemen come and push him, 5 yards down the field. It shouldn't be allowed, and I'm glad they're going to hopefully vote in favor of banning it, the revised version. And the other thing is I disagree with the last caller, because there's a reason you're supposed to win as many games in sports as possible, and we've seen it here. Like, we made the playoffs 7-9 a few years ago, the year Tampa won the Super Bowl. Well, why should we be rewarded because we played a soft schedule with no quarterbacks at the end? I mean, I know things happen in every division, but there's a reason that you win as many games as possible, and I don't think that a 6-10 or 7-10 team should have a home game against an 11-5 team. I'm in favor of the change.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of ideas on that. Like, if you win a division, as long as you've got a winning record or 500 record or winning record, then you get to host. But if you win a division with a losing record, then you actually are going to get seeded based on your record. I think it's just cleaner and easier to seed based on record. I think it's competitively unfair for the Minnesota Vikings, who won 14 games last year, to have to play on the road against somebody who won 10. I think Washington last year, as a 12-win team, shouldn't have to travel to a team that only won 10. But I believe enough, and the divisions are very important to me because they've been so important to the league historically. I want the divisions to still mean something. So if you win the division, you qualify for the postseason. Without that, then you might as well just do away with the divisions. But yeah, I think you're going to make many more games mean something at the end of the year if you're playing for not only qualifying for the postseason, but you're playing for seeding as well. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. The league's going to vote on two things tomorrow. They're going to vote on whether or not to ban the tush push, which has been tweaked to include all plays wherever they are on the field. You cannot assist, you cannot pull, you cannot push, you cannot lift a ball carrier anywhere on the field. So the play that we see where a running back gets slowed down and is about to get tackled, 2 yards short of the end zone or 5 yards short of the end zone or the first down marker, and then you get a bunch of offensive linemen to come up and push, that'll be outlawed too. So it's not just the tush push. Are you in favor of outlawing that? Yes or no? Why or why not? And then the other thing is playoff seeding. Seeding the field once the field has been established with 4 division winners and 3 wild card teams based on record. So as a division winner, If you've got, a 9-8 record and the 5 seed is 13-4, you're going to have to play that game on the road, even though you won the division. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Mark in Largo. Mark, go ahead.
Kevin, I agree with the tush push, and now that you explain, I agree with you on the tush push. I think if you explain it like you just explained it, because we see plays, not just the tush push, but where people are 4 or 5 yards down, and then offensive linemen, like you said, they'll push them and they get the first down. All that stuff should be outlawed. That included, along with the tush push, should be outlawed. As far as the seating is concerned, look, you play to win the game, as Herm Edwards used to say. And last year, I think for a fact, you had two anomalies. You had 2 teams. Really, you had 3 teams. Okay, we can throw the Packers in there as well too. You had 3 teams that had better records than the Rams and the Buccaneers. Okay, in Washington, Green Bay, and Minnesota. There's no way. Now, I get where everybody was going with that, but I honestly think in that case, you do have to just go by records in general. You have now, if they're a tie and it's division record and division winner and a regular season wild card, then you give the tie to the division winner.
That's
but
part of the proposal.
Go by record.
Mark, you just added something that I haven't mentioned. That is actually part of the Detroit proposal, which is if a division winner is tied with a wild card team, it wouldn't go to head-to-head. It would go to the division winner would win that tiebreaker and get to host the game. And I'm fine with that as a tiebreaker.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Why did you think? Well, let me ask you this: do you think it's because Detroit felt like they should have played somebody else outside of Washington the first game? You think that's the reason why they pushed it?
Well, Detroit still, actually, if it had been seeding based on record last year, Detroit would have been the 1, Washington would have been the 4. The reason Washington went to Detroit in round 2 is because Washington was a 6 and upset the 3 in the first round and became the lowest seeded team to advance. It's not a perfect bracket. It's reseeding after each round. So Detroit wasn't technically supposed to even play Washington in the postseason last year. They were scheduled to play the Rams-Vikings winner in the 4-5 game.
Right. We was actually supposed to go to Philadelphia, and the Rams were supposed to go to Detroit. We were supposed to go to Philadelphia. So yeah, they need to do something about that. They need to fix that. The NBA has fixed that. The one thing I give the NBA credit. You may have a division winner. It used to be where the division winner would get a higher seed than someone who had a better record. But if they went head to head, they don't do that anymore. To whoever had the best record. Yeah,
they don't. Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Honestly, I don't even know what the NBA divisions are. I'm pulling it up right now. Like, are there even divisions anymore? I don't even know that there are. I mean, that's crazy that I don't know that. Yeah, it says that there's an NBA, Eastern Conference, Atlantic, Central, Southeast. Wizards are in the Southeast with the Magic, Heat, Hawks, and Hornets. I mean, the only thing you ever see is you see the conference standings. And now with the play-in 7 through 10, the divisions are completely irrelevant in the NBA. In the NFL, they'll always be important, and this would not change that part of it. You just aren't going the extra step of rewarding a division winner with not only a playoff berth, but also a home game. That's what the proposal is, to seed based on record once you have the 7 qualified teams, which would come from 4 division winners, 3 wild cards. 301-230-0980. Let's keep the phone lines going. We've got a line open if you want to jump in. Are you in favor of banning the tush push? And again, it's just not the tush push. It is aiding a runner anywhere on the field. You can no longer, aid, push, pull, lift, assist a runner anywhere on the field. So that would eliminate the, multiple linemen pushing the running back from 3 yards short of the goal line into the end zone as well. You in favor of that? You in favor of reseeding or seeding based on record? 301-230-0980. Let's go to Samaj. Samaj, go ahead. Thanks.
Hey, Coach. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, Samaj?
First off, I'm gonna speak on the seeding thing. I'm always in favor of postseason high to low seeding. I think this is the fair way to go about it. So that's where I'm at on that. I'm for that rule. However, on this aiding the runner and push deal, I want to speak to a refinement type of thing, because I watch college ball too. And what I've witnessed over the last 5-10 years is that it's just overall gotten out of hand.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with the tush push per se. So this is what I would like to see. First of all, it's football. It's physical. It's man on man, mano a mano. I don't mind a little rugby element in the game. I don't mind it at all. Not to mention that this goes both ways. It's not like one team can do it and the other team can't. So the defensive guys and defensive coaches get paid to coach and to strategize and to play and to stop as well. So I don't necessarily have an issue with it, but I think there needs to be some refinement. I would get rid of all aiding the runner situations, period. That's the part that's out of hand.
Well, that's what the rule is.
I don't like it. Right, I don't like it. But I would like to see a refinement, Kevin, where you could do a tush push 5 yards in, whether it be 5 yards for the first down, 5 yards up the goal line. I don't mind that. Like I said, both sides get to do it. Both sides get to strategize, get to stop it. So that's what I would like. Get rid of the aiding the runner all up and down the field. However, if teams want to do the tush push inside 5 yards for a first down, inside 5 yards for a goal line situation, let them have at it. Like I said, the defensive guys get paid too. Let's keep it. Enough football has been.
So
taken
you're
away
against the rule. You don't want you're fine with a push or a push or an assistance of the quarterback under the center behind the line of scrimmage, but you are opposed to it everywhere else on the field.
5 yards in is the only way that play should be allowed. And what
do you mean? What do you mean 5 yards in? 5 yards from the end zone?
5 yards, period. If it's 5 yards to a first down, it's legal. If it's 5 yards to a goal line, it's legal.
You would never use it
yards,
anywhere outside 5 yards. Why would you tush push on 2nd and 6?
Well, that's where it falls into the aiding the runner. That's what I'm saying. Anything outside of 5 yards is aiding the runner. All that needs to go to the waste can. I'm saying inside 5 yards, whether it be for a first down, whether it be a goal, I don't mind the tush push. Like I said, both teams get to do it. Both teams get to try to stop it. I don't mind that rugby element in the game.
I'm not completely following the logic, but let me just say this with respect to stopping it. They basically told you in the NFC Championship game there is an extent to which you are allowed to go before we're going to stop you from trying to stop it. And we're going to award the team a touchdown. Washington was trying to time the snap. That was their creative way in trying to stop it. And the referee stopped the game after the second offsides on Frankie Louvu and said, the next one could be an awarding of a touchdown. So I'm not in favor of that. If they keep this rule and the tush push continues, then I think the defense should be able to do whatever it wants creatively within the rules to stop it. And I don't think part of the rules should be to award a touchdown. It's slow. It is a pace of play issue from this standpoint. It is a slow play. It's an uneventful play. And if you're going to run it over and over again and the defense is going to try to stop it over and over again by timing the cadence and committing penalties, then you're going to end up in the quagmire you ended up with in the NFC Championship game. I don't think you should stop the defense from trying to do that. It sounds like you agree. I'm not sure I really get the whole 5 yard thing. But thanks.
I agree with you. I agree with you on your point, that part, that 100%. But like I said, both teams are able to do this. It's not like one team can and one team cannot. And
of
said,
course,
the
it's a league rule.
And defensive players, they get paid to stop offenses. So as much football has been taken away, as much stuff has gone to aiding one side or the other, that is one part of the game that is pretty much either you can stop it or you can't. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that because that's football. But outside of goal line situation, outside of 5 yards to a first down, no, all that aiding the runner.
Well, there are rules that prevent you from doing things that defenses don't have to stop, like holding, clipping, like, illegal use of hands, all those things. And this would just be another one. You're not allowed to assist the runner, the ball carrier. And if you do, it's a penalty. Stop them, by tackling the ball carrier short of the sticks, short of the goal line, without having three players push that player forward into the end zone. That part of it actually, thanks for the call, Samaj. That part of that
other play,
of
Kev, if
the
you don't
now
mind.
revised rule, Samaj, I got to move on and I got to get to a break. But that part of the rule, actually, to me, there is a safety element to a 360-pound offensive lineman running up behind a ball carrier and pushing that ball carrier who is, getting stopped 2 yards short of the goal line or a first down, and pushing that player and that whole pile backwards or forwards, but for a defense, it's going backwards. All right. I see everybody on hold. Stay there. We'll take more calls on this. Are you in favor of what they're going to vote on tomorrow? And that is not just banning the tush push. Again, the rule has been revised in terms of what they're considering. The revised rule prohibits an offensive player anywhere on the field from pushing, pulling, lifting, or assisting a runner. So you wouldn't see tush pushes anymore, and you wouldn't see that running back get pushed by four offensive linemen from the 6-yard line into the end zone when it looks like he's about to go down. 301-230-0980. The other thing is they're going to vote more likely than not tomorrow on seeding the playoff field by record. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, the Chicago Bears agreed to a deal with Joe Thuney to keep him in Chicago past 2025. He signed a 2-year extension worth up to $35 million and $33.5 guaranteed. Following the loss to Carolina, the Capitals have announced defenseman Rasmus Sandin will be playing at the IIHF World Championships this summer. And the Braves come to town today to play the Washington Nationals. Mitchell Parker is expected to be on the bump. Nats on deck with Charlie Slows and Dave Jagler at 6:15. Plus, the conference finals, they get underway tonight, both in the NBA and the NHL. The Timberwolves will take on the Oklahoma City Thunder at 8:30, and the Panthers will take on the Carolina Hurricanes at 8. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports, and that's what's trending.
Before I get back to the phone lines, the NBA Western Conference Finals get underway tonight. Very much looking forward to Timberwolves Thunder. Would have preferred to have seen Denver advance so you can watch more of Jokic, but SGA versus, Ant Edwards will be a phenomenal matchup. I actually like the to not only win the Western Conference Finals, but to win the title. I like them tonight, laying 7.5, but I think this will be a long series. I'm looking forward to this series more than Pacers Knicks. But the scene in the Garden for these playoff games is pretty sick. I actually like Indiana to win that series in 6 games. I like an Indiana-Oklahoma City NBA final. That's crazy to even mention. And we will have, regardless of what the NBA matchup is in the finals, we're going to have a 7th consecutive winner that isn't a repeat winner in the previous 7 years. The 7th unique NBA champion in a row. This used to be a sport dominated by the upper echelons. It has changed for sure. All right, back to the phone lines. Yes or no? Do you want the tush push or the tweaked version of the tush push banned? And how do you feel about seeding the playoff format, but seeding the playoff field by record? Let's go to Teddy in Silver Spring. Teddy, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Thanks a lot for taking my call. I appreciate it. I'm against the tush push and any iteration or version of it because it negates the forward progress rule. Like every time you think that a runner's forward progress is stopped, the ref never blows the whistle, and then they get like 3, 4, 5 additional yards because somebody's pulling or pushing them or assisting them. So I don't feel like both. So either say there's no forward progress rule or the tush push, but I don't see how both can exist because it gives the offense an unfair advantage that after the play is over, they still can continue to get yards. After the forward progress is stopped.
Yeah,
and I think
technically
that,
a forward progress is stopped by rule today, even without the tweak of the rule, the play is whistle dead. But to your point, how many times do we think it appears as if progress has been stopped or it's about to get stopped, and then you get 3 big offensive linemen pushing the guy 5, 6 yards further down the field?
Exactly. And I think that the playoffs should be seeded by record. I mean, you've seen a lot of times where division leaders or champs have losing records or terrible records, and then they get, advantages because they're the best of the worst. I think that you should go by record.
Yep. We're in agreement. Thanks, Teddy. Appreciate it. Let's go to Kenny. Kenny's calling from Charlotte. Kenny, go ahead.
How you doing, Kev?
Good, Kenny.
I would say real quick, going backwards, I'm okay with the seating the way it is. If they changed it, I would be all right with it. But to me, if you 11-5 facing a team that's 7-10, you should beat them on any field. That's just my personal opinion.
Yep.
So that's how I look at that. As it pertains to the tush push, I personally don't like the fact that a 300-plus pound lineman can run all the way upfield, full head of steam, and barrel into the back of his own player. To me, I've seen too many people get up real slow, after a play like that. I want my running back to get up and play the next play, you know what I mean? Or receiver, whoever it may be. However, I wanted to run this by you. I was watching an interview with Frankie Louvu, and he said something about he wouldn't necessarily have a problem with it if they all had to go on the same snap count. That could be a tweak that they could discuss. And I don't like the idea of offensive linemen being behind the quarterback. To me, they should be in front of the ball carrier. So maybe if you kept the tush push, you say only a tight end or a running back or somebody other than a lineman can be behind the quarterback.
Well, it usually is a tight end. It usually is a tight end, right?
It's not a lineman?
No, usually it's a tight end. But sometimes it could be a 6th lineman out there as well. But,
because I thought
for whatever reason, to me, it seems like it's Dallas Goedert or it's a tight end more often than not. I could be wrong, though. But yeah, the snap count thing to me is I mean, what are you going to do? Declare, then you're declaring what the play is too. Hey, we are running the tush push and we're going on one. That's not part of this rule proposal. So I don't like that tweak. I just think that the way Green Bay revised this proposal, now it adds all of these other plays that I also think aren't really true football plays. And I haven't enjoyed watching the running back, a 3-yard gain on 3rd and 5, and then all of a sudden get pushed 3 yards further in the sticks move and it's 1st and 10. I want to see the runner get that, or I want to see it blocked well enough in front of him for the runner to get it. Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate it. Yeah, let's go to Cyrus. He's been on hold for a while. Cyrus, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, I'm against the idea of the tush push, but I'm not sure all the extra all-encompassing banning assisting the runner is at least necessary for right now. I'm surprised the proposal isn't just, if you took the snap under center, you can't get pushed.
They couldn't get it passed. They only had 16 votes for that.
So that was specifically proposed, like with
that was the
verbiage
original. The revised includes everything else. They think that has a better chance of passing and getting an additional 8 votes.
I have a hard time believing that they'd want to police it all over the field versus just the play on the tush push, because that's like, if you're isolating the play of the tush push itself, you could do a year of that to see like, okay, how's the pace of play, which I agree with you about. How is it if, okay, Jalen Hurts isn't going to get pushed if he takes the snap under center, so he could take it in the pistol and then risk, losing that extra head start that he'll have when he takes the snap, and see how that goes. But I have a hard time believing it won't be really hard for the officials to keep track of it all, especially if there's a play like where the running back might be stumbling and then maybe like an offensive lineman not necessarily propels him forward, but like holds him
I think
up.
it's the intentional, it's the intentional. I could read the rule. It's pretty detailed, but yeah, it would have to be sort of the intentional pushing, pulling, lifting, or assisting. If a lineman's, stumbling downfield or getting blocked, from behind, and he ends up, plowing into the back of his running back, I don't know that would be a penalty. And it, there'd be some subjectivity to it anyway. But yeah, it's the only way they feel like they can get this thing passed was to essentially go to a rule that used to exist. This is the thing that, they just never got enforced, being able to aid a runner, a ball carrier. And then we've seen what's happened with Jalen Hurts. All of you on hold that I didn't get to, I apologize. We've run out of time on the show today, but tomorrow during the show, we may have the results of both the tush push tweaked version of it and also the playoff seeding. Maskey told us yesterday he thinks the seeding thing will not pass. He thinks that will be a rule that will eventually get implemented when they go to an 18-game schedule. All right, that's it for the day. Chris Russell is back. He's up next.